this is Jake. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today, this is going to be a beginner slash semi-intermediate webinar about visual scheduling in Dynamics NAV. I am going to cover some of the, I would say, the underlying or basic concepts of visual scheduling, but at the same time, I also want to show you guys a lot of the functionality of the add-ins, so that way you have a sense for what they can do. Without any further ado, let me get started. So here I am, Jake, your presenter. I do business development here at NETRONIC, and I really work with our international partners and international customers to create these successful partnerships and take their scheduling processes to the next level, I would say, using this visual transparency that we offer. All right. So today we're going to look at briefly at all three of the products we have for Dynamics NAV at this current time, which will be the Visual Production Scheduler, Visual Jobs Scheduler, and Visual Services Scheduler. So depending on which you're interested in most, make sure you pay attention now or stay tuned, and I will get to it. Here I am in my NAV database. Let me actually expand this. All right, so from a navigational standpoint, I'm here in my departments, okay? And if I come up here under planning, you know that, let's do execution first. So I have my plan, my firm plan, and my release production orders, okay? And really the concept here for visual scheduling, what we're trying to do is just provide a visual front end to the data that is already in NAV. So we're not changing any of the data. We're not adding any of our own, I would say, logic behind this. Really what we're trying to do is take what's already in NAV and build off that, bolster it, if you will, and that's what you're going to see here in just a moment. So I come here into planning, and I come up here into the visual production scheduler. Okay, you see it living here as a list item, and this first product, the visual production scheduler, is actually the oldest, I would say, of the children of this family of products that we've built for Dynamics NAV, and it's going to be visualizing our production orders from the manufacturing module in NAV. Okay. So the first thing you notice when I open the screen, you see that I have my role center maintained, and this is really important because when you're working within a visual scheduler that's integrated into an ERP system, obviously the main goal is that you are still working within the ERP system, and you want to see just the data reflected that you have from NAV. So obviously all these options are still maintained. You have a menu ribbon across the top, okay, which has icons specific to the VPS, to the Visual Production Scheduler, right? And inside the Gantt chart, so the main portion of our screen, is going to be the manufacturing schedule. So this is where we really paint that picture, where we really provide that visual front end to the data you have living in NAV, okay? And the way we create this picture, or the way we break it down, is we have here on the left-hand side, on this vertical axis, you have actually in this first view that we're in, which is called our production order view, we have our production order lines. So we have our planned production order lines, our firm planned, and our released. And you can see that they're all grouped and they're color-coded according to their status that they have, right? So this is the standard, this is how we build it from the out-of-the-box standpoint. And if you guys do have questions about if you have certain bespoke or customized functionality or views or something like this, and you want to know if it's possible to tailor these applications to fit your needs, it absolutely is. What I'm showing you is our out-of-the-box product. So these products can be taken, purchased from us, obviously, and then implemented directly into standard NAV, and this is exactly what you're seeing here. Or if there are other specifications, other functionalities needed, we do this sort of stuff all the time. So we're very open to collaborating and building out further functionality. So that was the vertical axis here, and then on the right-hand side, okay, this horizontal axis, you see my time scale. So this is important. This is our working date, Okay, so this is essentially today's date that we've set up in NAV, right? And then my time scale is going to be how much I'm looking in the past, so how much I'm looking to the left of the working date, and how much I'm looking to the right of the working date, right? And if I come up here under Setup in Administration, we're not going to get to go through all the tabs today, but I have other webinars, and you can certainly send me an email and we can go through it. But I'll go through some of the major icons here, or actions. So from this working date, I'm defining how far in the past and how far out into the future I'm looking. So this is my time span. So the total span of time that I'm deciding to look at, right? So this can also be redefined based off whatever you want to make it. Right now I have this in English. It can be localized for languages. We have it already in English, German, and French. But I have customers and partners that have localized this for languages all over the world, from Portuguese to Japanese to Estonian to whatever you need. So I'm going to switch this to -3 days and out 3 weeks. Yes, I'd like to reload the data. Okay, so now you see when I come back here, I'm looking back 3 days and out 3 weeks. So this is how we really predicate and base and build this picture and this schedule. Okay. Now on the screen itself, okay, let's just open up, expand out a production order here. So we see here on this production order 10.10.04, line 10,000, you see that I have expanded this out with this little triangle here. Okay, this allows us to see, to break out and look into the details of that production order line. Okay, and now you see, I can see that there are 5 operations that make up this production order line. Starting with operation 10 in the 20, 30, 40, I can see that it starts at the assembly department, will come down then to the drilling machine, CNC machine, machine inspection, finally finishing on packing table 2. So this is going to span across 3 different work centers, and actually within those work centers you have the different machine centers. So I have customers, and I also have customers that are using only work centers and not even making use of machine centers based off their type of production, whether it be whatever injection molding or whether it be a more made to stock type of situation. So this obviously will reflect whatever setup you've created in NAV, pending that it is based on the standard. So we see here the routing, and I see, I guess, information here on the bar of the operations, right? So I get information there from the bar label, but I also get information when I'm looking at the tooltip text that pops up. So I have this tooltip text that pops up, also giving me information about this particular production order operation, about this production order itself. And also if I wanted to actually open up the routing, so let's say I need to jump back into NAV, I'm just going to double click on any of these operations here. And as I double click, what's going to happen is it's going to open up that production order card, namely this one for the back wheel. And then come here and I can look at the routing. And for those of you that know standard NAV, this is standard NAV, but it's important to note that, you know, exactly what this picture is here, this is just a tabular form. This is what we're painting here. So when you see the setup and the runtime combined, this is what you get for the duration of the bar here inside the Gantt chart. Okay? And that'll be important later, because when we're shifting things around or dragging and dropping, this is really what we're going to be working with. This data, the truthful data right from NAV. Right. So if I were to take an operation and actually move it, okay, you see that when I move operations, let's do that, might be a little more noticeable. So when I move a certain operation, in this case, I have it set so that all of my operations will move automatically with it. So in these 5 operations, I can see that the links between them exist, and I have this routing linked, right? Important to note is that this black diamond here, and you can see this black diamond on other orders as well, this is the intended completion date on that production order, okay? The gray, white background you're seeing, okay? This is working time. The white, take it from the shift calendar settings in NAV, and the gray is non-working time, okay? So here, obviously, Saturday and Sunday, it's very much gray because you have weekend. But then here you see I have this kind of gray, and it cuts in like a kind of upside down L shape. And that's because the assembly and packing departments, they have a 1-shift calendar, whereas the machine department has a 2-shift calendar. So like I said, we're taking this right from the calendar shift settings in NAV, and of course the scheduler is going to take into consideration the timing around that. It's just reflecting one-to-one, very truthfully, what you have in NAV, which can be hugely valuable if you want to check data quality, for example. All right, now you see a couple things happen when I move this. So I've actually moved my operation 50 right up to the edge of Friday afternoon, kind of in a just-in-time format. And when I moved these things, actually all of the operations in this production order line took on a red border, this red outline. And what this red outline is telling me is that I have made a change here in the VPS, in the Visual Production Scheduler, but I've not yet committed that change back into NAV. So this is really, really important to understand that while I'm making drag and drop changes, so I'm just dragging this here and just going to see what the impact would be. Okay, I can look at the capacities at the bottom. We'll talk about that in a second. But any movements I'm doing right now, okay, I'm not changing information in NAV. Okay, I'm not. I'm just simulating that. Okay, and then if I do want to change that data, I can do the Save Data option here. But what's really nice is that with the visual scheduling, with the visual scheduler, you are able to first simulate before you have to actually commit data back. Okay, but also committing data back and writing data back into NAV is as easy as just saving it. All right, and we'll talk more about this in just a moment. For now, let me move this operation to this point here. Now you see, actually, I've moved operation 50 to a point where it's now late, so it's moved beyond the intended completion date, and you can very easily see that via this red cross-hatching. Okay, so we don't make this as a hard stop where you can't move this here anymore. Okay, and that's on purpose because it could be the fact that you need to move this to a later point in the schedule, right? And we want the goal here with the visual schedulers. These are simplistic in their build, very much so on purpose, so as to allow the planner, the human scheduling team, so the humans, right, to be able to come in here and drag and drop things. So of course you could have in other scheduling tools or other planning tools underlying algorithms, so underlying logic that tries to schedule for you, but that's not what we're trying to accomplish here. What we're trying to accomplish is give you a tool that gives you the transparency to schedule and plan with more agility. So the scheduler has a certain amount of knowledge that she or he has built over the years or over time, and they can then use that to come in here and optimize the schedule themselves via drag and drop. And in this first view that I'm in now, I'm really concerned about the timing. So I'm concerned about the timing around production orders, right? That's why I have the completion date. That's why I can see when it comes late. I can also see, though, at some point, when I scroll over top of different work or machine centers, I can look at the histogram at the bottom, so the total capacity that the resource that work or machine center has per day, right? Okay, I can see how much capacity that resource has per day and how much of that capacity is being utilized. Okay, and I can also see overloads, but we're going to look at that now when I jump into my resource view. So in this first view, just remember, this is the time-centric view, so we're really concerned about the timing. Now if we want to switch in and get a more, I would say, resource-centric view, okay, we can have that here in our resource view, where now you see on the left-hand side, you see my work and my machine centers on the left side. Right? And inside the Gantt chart, you're seeing my production orders, my production order operations on which different resources, different work or machine centers are working. Okay? So here I can very easily see now, for example, okay, on a given resource, such as Mike Siemens, right? I can see that Mike has a daily capacity of 1, right? And if I double click on Mike here, right? Here's the capacity defined NAV. That's where we're drawing this from. That's where you get it. And I can see how much of that capacity is used at any given time. And I can see, for example, when here there is overage or too much work assigned to Mike. Okay? And this is really your view where you can very nicely take items and say, okay, as a scheduler, as a planner, I have a couple options here. I can actually move something to a later point in the schedule. But now you see when I do this, it actually makes it late. So even though I'm in the resource view, I still see the impact of timing around my movements, right? I can move this to an earlier point in the schedule, right? To try to get this done earlier, okay? But alternatively, what I can also do is look and see, okay, actually, you know what? I see that there are other resources within this work center that have the ability to do this work. So what I can also do is I can shift work down onto these other resources, right, that might have free capacity at this time, and I can reallocate work that way. So instead of changing the timing around certain items, what I can do also is I can shift from one resource to another, and I can actually change the routing itself, okay? So, like I said, you have the option to make these horizontal shifts with operations or vertical shifts. So a change in timing or a change in routing just from the scheduler. And again, you see this red border is telling me that I've made a change in the VPS, have not yet committed the change back into NAV. Okay, and it's important to understand. Now there are other options here, such as filtering. So I can obviously create a filter on certain fields. Let's say here, I have one set. Let's do it again. So let's say I wanted to filter on all of my production orders where the status is released. Okay, so I'm just setting a filter on the production order line level where the status is released. Now I'm going to activate that filter, and now you see I'm only looking at my release production orders. Okay, I'm still taking into consideration my plan and firm plan in terms of capacity, but as far as reducing information shown on the screen, I'm now able to only focus on my release production orders, as that's what I'm really mostly concerned about. Now, this view is great for dragging and dropping and optimizing, I would say, capacities across work and machine centers, but it doesn't do the best job of giving you the complete overview. So if you want the complete overview, you would switch now into your third view, which is called your histogram view. And in our histogram view, we can see again our work and machine centers on the left-hand side. Okay? And now instead of seeing operations or individual tasks assigned to these resources, now what you're seeing is the amount of utilization of their capacity, right, on a daily basis. So now I can see very easily, okay, across my entire schedule, where do I have maybe some free capacity available? Okay, where do I have any overloads occurring? So any problems with capacity, any conflicts? Okay, it's easy to see via the red here. And this view really affords you that that complete overview, that 30,000 foot view, I would say, more or less on your across your capacity usage. And then in this view, but also with all the views, there is an ability to do a print preview. At least here, what I'm in the .NET version of the add-in. So this is the running on the Windows client. Let's see here on their page setup. So I'm just going to define a new time frame. Select OK. Select fit into page. So if I wanted to make a printout for a meeting, for a planning meeting, or a PDF that I wanted to send around to my team, I could do that here, of course. Okay. Yeah, there are some other things here that I think are really important to note. I mean, there's certain functionality such as like indicator functionality that is really nice to have. And I've gone into those in other webinars. Something else that I find that is pretty nice to have is the ability to, for example, show item availability by the bill of material level. So if I wanted to come in here and look at a visualized bill of material, okay, all I would do is right-click on a production order, I want to view the bill of material on this production order so I can see that I have a certain demanded quantity. Okay, I can see how much of that quantity is available. If I didn't have enough, so let's say there was a problem, you would see that this would become red. Okay. So what you can really do with this, which is nice, is you can say, okay, based off of my demand date here, which is right now the Wednesday, let's say the customer calls or somebody asks me, hey, Jake, is it possible to get that order in based off material availability? Is it possible to do that a day earlier? And now what I can actually do is I can shift this date. So now what I did was I was just shifting that from Wednesday over to this Tuesday. And then you see what happens is it updates the material availability, right? Just to pulling the BOM from NAV. So now I'm going to actually shift this and say, okay, great. I do have enough material, right, to meet this demand. Okay. So now what I can do is I can actually say, okay, you know what? Now that I know I have the free material, I'm going to actually go ahead and assign that new demand date and close this. And now what it will do is actually shift this production order so as to adhere to this new demand date. Okay. So these things are able to help you simulate such things as, okay, if material availability is available at a certain time, and I shifted this, what would that look like? All right, so I've spent a lot of time on the VPS, on the Visual Production Scheduler, but the good news is that a lot of the functionality that I'm showing you is going to be representative across the whole suite of products. So let's switch now into the Visual Job Scheduler. And then I'll just show you guys, get you the look and feel. Yeah, so there's some new functionality coming into all the products. I have it here in my jobs already, but basically you have the ability to define filters. Go back to my last webinar I just did. I showed you all the new functionalities for the VJS, but this is really cool. So for the production, jobs, and services, they're all getting this ability to define and save multiple filters. So let's say you have a project management team of 10 people. Each person has their 5 jobs they need to focus on. They can go in and define their 5 jobs and only filter in and pull in those 5 jobs. So it's quite nice. All right, so those of you that are familiar with projects, with jobs, will obviously know that a job is made up of a hierarchy of job tasks as well as job planning lines, right? So I'm not going to spend any time clarifying this. This is standard NAV. But really, this breakdown is exactly what we're showing here inside the VJS, okay? All the way down to the job planning line level, okay? And what's really nice, I have here a job selected. You can see okay, so you see this outline, this brighter outline. So when I switch now into my resource view, I can still see now with this new functionality, okay, which job did I have selected inside of the jobs view. So I'm going through this one a little quicker, guys. I apologize, but I have a ton of webinars and stuff on this. Plus, if you have other questions, email me. But basically now you see I have my resources on the left-hand side. I can see on which job tasks they're working here inside the Gantt chart. And of course, I'm getting a histogram view of the resource utilization. How much capacity does that resource have? How much is being utilized? Where do I have overcapacities? Okay. Some really cool features coming into this product as well. So I mean, like things like the ability to actually split a job planning line, but now I can actually define. I can define the split itself. So I can define. Actually, let's do this. Let's do 12, and I'm going to assign it down to Carl Simmons. So I can not only define what the split's going to look like, I can define who it goes to, for how much time, on which dates. So now I can actually split this. And now what happens is I split this task, right? And then it actually, not only does it split it into the 2 parts that I've defined, but it creates a link between the 2, allowing me to maintain the fact that I know, okay, these were at one time connected via one job planning line, okay? And again, you have tons of opportunities here. So I mean, within jobs, we have this unassigned resource group, which I explain more in other videos. Basically, it's a placeholder, so you can assign work up to the group level, and then at a later point come down and allocate that work down to individual resources, right? You can look at setting resource skills, so highlighting resource skills. So I don't know if any of you guys work with skills, but if I need to look at certain resources having certain skills, right, I can very easily select the skills I've set from the resource planning. I can come in here and I can see which resources have those skills. So you have two. Like Linda Martin is the only one who can do accessories plus PC software. Okay. So again, we're taking the standard nav. We're not changing it. We're just giving you this visual tool that can really help you gain some transparency. So let's go back here. So there's also a histogram view here in the visual job scheduler. Okay, so you can see what's going on across your resources, across your jobs. Actually, a new view here, which is pretty nice, which is actually just the histogram view, but you get it in numbers. So you get it for all of your resource groups and resources, and the colors are also changing very soon. So don't worry, this will not be so hard to read. We can see percentages of how much percentage of this resource group is booked, quoted, free, for how many hours. Okay, so we're trying to bring these two worlds of scheduling and reporting a little closer together, because historically we focus mainly on scheduling, and we are visual scheduling, so we believe that scheduling is a forward-facing function. But what this allows you to do is also look forward while having this kind of, I would say, numerical look at things. Okay. All right. So lots of stuff for the VJS as well. If you go back to my webinar I just did most recently, there's a recording of all the new features for the VJS. And if you have any other questions, write them down. I'll do those in just a second. Let's just switch in here to services just to get an idea. So for services, it's a little unique, but we have a dispatch board, so a visual dispatch board, okay, in which you can see, okay, when which allocations have already been made to different resources, okay. And here's an order backlog. So here I can actually take service order allocations. So I can take service items and I can drag them out and assign them to resources, right? So same thing, we're pulling from the same resources. Again, you see at the bottom of the screen a histogram for how much utilization or how much capacity the resource has per day. And you can see when allocations have been made. Major difference here with the service scheduler is just that now you have an order backlog. So you have this, so with service allocation, right, there's two pieces. There's the creation of a service order, and there's the allocation or the dispatch of it to a resource. And you see here I have my dispatch board, right? And here I have my not yet allocated but created order backlog, all right? Also tons of stuff on service. A new service release, I shouldn't say just service. The service, when I say service release, I mean a update for all of the add-ins for production, jobs, and services is coming very soon, which is going to bring a lot of really cool features, new features into all three of the add-ins. So stay tuned for that. I'm putting my email up on the screen for you guys to send me an email if you have any questions.